Love your job. Why would you retire early? I loved my job. I tried for a couple of pensions, never really worked out. My first one, I tried the Marine Corps. After Desert Storm, they downsized. I tried law enforcement. In 2008, there was a recession, and we all know that during a recession, there's no more crime, so we don't need cops anymore. Got laid off again. Tried a trucking company that was part of a union, like UPS, that just settled on a new $170,000 a year wage for their drivers, which will take 5 years to get there. But I was working for Oak Harbor Freight Lines, making about $115,000 a year. And they went on strike because that wasn't enough. So every time I tried for a pension, it kept getting taken away. So I started looking for a job I would enjoy. And I landed on teaching people how to drive trucks. I enjoy teaching. The goal of my content here on this channel is to teach you, the average individual, that you can reach financial freedom in 10 years or less, make work completely optional, even if you're not starting in the best position. And I enjoy... YouTube keeps asking me to insert ads. Not going to do it. I enjoy teaching people. I enjoyed teaching people how to drive trucks. Imagine taking somebody on a 100,000-pound vehicle on the freeway for the first time. That's amazing. And I was working at the CDL school. I had a couple of ideas. One was to found a nonprofit that did job placement assistance for non-driving jobs. So if you know somebody looking for work, my nonprofit was called Transportation Placement Services. You can find information at hiddenjobs.org. And we found people jobs in management, HR, IT, operations, forklift, all the non-driving positions to develop relationships with local companies so they would hire our graduates. That grew the CDL school. So over the next few years, I was slowly demoted from instructor down to president of the company. And I got to develop curriculum. I got to work with state agencies and employers, and went from 60 to 100 students a year to 2,000 students a year, helping them find good local driving jobs. And I loved my job. But my pensions kept getting taken away due to things outside of my control. So I decided to build my own pension. And I started investing in real estate. I reached financial freedom in about 8 years. Could have quit. Around 2018, could have stopped working. Didn't start investing until I was 40. So it took 8 years from 40, where I had started from a position after getting laid off from law enforcement, Oak Harbor Freight Lines going on strike. Starting at the CDL school, I was making $17 an hour as a single parent with 3 kids, found out about $89,000 in bad debt in my name I didn't know existed until the divorce. So when we talk about starting from a bad position, I pretty much was. The only thing that would have made it worse is if I was doing something stupid like dating, or had a bad health concern, which I'd rather have a health concern. But I was still able to reach financial freedom in about 8 years. Why did I retire at the 12-year mark? I worked for 4 more years because I love my job so much. And I think I had some of the problems that I'm going to talk about today, where I talk about, if you love your job, why might you still want to retire early? The first, I'm going to use the math of time to explain why you might want to retire early. And one of these is going to sound a little bit mean. It's not meant to be mean. It's meant to be from my heart to teach you, to show you that there could be a reason to retire early that you might not have thought of so far. And I use this as an example in the members only live stream on Saturday. And so if you were in the members only live, or you've seen it since then in Futureland, you know what's coming. This is the math of time. There's a Facebook meme reel going around with, I think it's Eddie Murphy, where he walks towards the camera and he talks about 75. 75 years. On average, the average person, 75 summers, 75 winters, 75 years that you get to spend. How many of those years do you want to spend working? You're going to spend around 18, maybe 20, 22, depending on college, in school, then work for 20 to 40. Out of 75, that doesn't leave you very many, right? So that's the math of time that's kind of making the real Facebook trip. I'm going to talk about, as a single parent with 3 kids, this is one of the most painful lessons I've had to learn. So there are some people watching who have kids. Most people watching have parents. This applies to anybody who has parents. I miss you, Mom. And I miss you, Dad. And I miss my kids too. Not sure where they're going to end up though. Here's the number. I want you to file this number away in your mind. Think of this number every time you think, why should I retire early? Because I love my job so much. I was the president of a company. I got to testify in Olympia, the state capital here, for the higher ed committee, the transportation committee. I was elected to be the president of the Northwest Career Colleges Federation. It's 112 vocational schools. I was entrenched. My identity was the job that I had. Why would you retire early when you can go to work, set your schedule, play World of Warcraft at your desk all day while people think you're working? Shouldn't say that on YouTube. But I don't work there anymore because I retired, because of the thing I learned when I talk about this one number I'm about to mention, which is not meant to be mean. Again, this is something I'm trying to say from my heart to tell you maybe you should think of this number when you think of your parents or your kids, maybe your spouse. But this applies to parents and kids the most. Mentally, if you're driving, write this number down. Mentally, if you're actually there, text yourself this number, just so you can think of this number sometime in the future when you're thinking one more year, because it will always mathematically make sense to work another year. 19. This is the number, if you have kids or your parents are still around, that I want you to use as motivation to make work optional, to reach financial freedom, and to retire early, even if you love your job. 19. You are going to spend about 19 years with your parents and with your kids. The first 18, this is from birth until 18. For the average person, some of us move out at 15 too, because we have that kind of relationship with our parents, but 18 years where you have a guardian, your parent is taking care of you, where you are taking care of your kids. So you get those 18 years. If you take the rest of that person's life, the rest of your kids' lives, the rest of your life, and you put together all of the time that you're ever going to spend with your kids again, or your parents again, holidays, weekend trips, lunches, dinners, hangout time, game night, whatever you do, you aggregate it all together, it's probably going to be about a year. So you take that year plus the 18 that you lived with your kids or with your parents, you're going to get 19. Remember that number, 19. 19 years is what you're going to get with your kids. How many times have you seen the meme go around Facebook or TikTok, Instagram, whatever your social media poison of choice is? The only people who are going to remember that you worked overtime in 20 years are your kids, because they are. So 19 is the math of time. The sooner you can retire, the sooner you can make work optional. One of the things that's true with my content is I don't teach people how to live longer. I can't. This is the math of time equation. I am not healthy. I eat anything that's in front of me. I drink stuff that makes my eyes water. Only work out to maintain physical body strength, not to stay in shape. And because I was forced to take some stupid vaccine that can kill you if you exercise, I can no longer run for exercise. So I'm not teaching people how to live longer. I teach people how to live more. So here's the math of time when it comes to retiring early. Up until last year when I was 52, because I started investing at 40, worked until 52. This is where the math of time really kicked in for me. I was working 50 to 60 hours a week, being the president of a company, running a nonprofit. Let's take out the overtime, and we'll just say 40 hours a week. So 40 hours a week for the average person. Some work a lot more, some work a little less. But if the average person is working 40 hours a week, now you commute. Most people, it's 20 to 30 minutes one way. So we're going to say an hour of commuting every day. You have to get ready for work. You have to do laundry, do dishes. You have to shop for things. There's all this time that we lose to work and to the things we need to do that aren't our own time. You have to, on average, sleep 8 hours a night. Some people, it's 5. Some people it's 12, depending on you personally. But we're going to average that out to 8. So in a 24-hour period, the average person is going to lose 8 hours for sleep, 8 hours for work. So it was 16 hours there, an hour for travel. So that's 17 hours. probably an hour for laundry, dishes, cleaning the house. So now you're at 18 hours you lose. So in a 24-hour day, there are 6 hours left that are yours. If I did the math anywhere close to right. 6 hours a day that are yours. But you're exhausted from the 8 hours of work, and the 1 hour of travel, and the getting ready for work, and then the after work where you have to think about what all the things you did right or wrong that day, and the things you need to do tomorrow to be ready for work. So out of those 6 hours that are yours, you're wiped out. That was me. Now put it up to 50 or 60 hours a week. So what did I actually have left at the end of every day that was my time? And compare it to the last year of my life. I turned in my notice July 5th, 2022. So it's been a little over a year now that I haven't had a job. I was kind of shocked that it's true. Every day is Saturday, like Zuber from One Rental at a Time says. What I wasn't expecting is that the time of day never matters either. Not only the day of the week, but the time of day doesn't matter. That absolute time freedom that comes from not having to earn income. I still sleep. I still do stuff around the house. I don't have a commute and I don't work. So I gained back a minimum of 9 hours a day that are mine. And I'm not exhausted ever. Because if I get a little tired, I just take a nap. I tell people often, I don't have a sleep schedule anymore. I don't sleep at night. Every now and then I take a nap, usually at night, but I take naps whenever I want. So I'm never exhausted anymore like I was. So you take the 6 hours that everybody has, you add the 9 hours that I had, and on average in the last year, I'm not going to live longer, I'm going to live more. I have 15 hours a day that are mine every single day. The math of time, eventually at the 12-year mark, even though I loved my job, reached financial freedom at the 8-year mark, worked for 4 more years, at the 12-year mark, time freedom beat out a job that I loved. Everything on the internet is true by Abraham Lincoln. Something I saw online is that Lincoln did say, or is attributed with saying, make sure I get this right because my memory is not so great. It's not the years in your life that matter. It's the life in your years that matters. If you're working towards financial freedom and the goal is to retire early, it's usually fairly easy to go, okay, I have reached enough cash flow, not just enough to retire, but multiples of what it would take to pay for your expenses. So you pull the trigger and retire. There are other people, Matt, who have multiples of their cash flow coming in that they need to live their life, to live a comfortable life, but continue to work. 19 years. The sooner you retire early, the more you multiply the time that you can get with your parents or with your kids or with somebody you're dating if you're dumb. You have choices. The last thing I'm going to wrap up with the math of time is when we retire, most of us do, right? 12% of people, 12% of people don't survive to retirement age, which age should not be a number. It should be a how much, not how old. So not everybody makes it to that age, but when we retire, you have 3 phases of retirement. The go-go years. This is when you are actually going to do a lot of traveling. You're going to be doing things every day. You're going to be going out every night. You're going to be able to keep up with anybody who's doing stuff. And you're going to be planning things almost every day. That's the go-go years. You have the go-slow years. This is when your body starts to fade. Your physical strength starts to go. Your ability to stay energetic goes away. And then eventually we get the no-go years. This is, for most people, after 70, after 75, when traveling is painful, getting up is painful, planning things hurts. If you're seeing family, you're generally sitting there and encountering them instead of doing something with them. The sooner you retire, every year that you add to that retirement, the go-go years and the go-slow years exponentially increase. The go-slow years are going to be the same for most of us, no matter when you retire. But the sooner you can retire, the more of the go-go years, the more life you can fit into your years because you pull the trigger sooner. If you're working a job that you love, think of this video and think of what you're costing yourself every year that you work. You're losing one of the 19, either with your kids or your parents. You are losing your go-go years. You are losing 15 hours a day and only getting 6, if you're lucky, and not working any overtime and not commuting more than half an hour each way to work. I hope that at least makes you think. That intro of this video will be eventually pulled out and put onto a weekend portion. And this is where I'm going to look at my chat and see that somebody says your sound's been off for 10 minutes and you haven't even heard any of that. The math of time tells you that you should retire as soon as you can. Not before you're ready, not before your cash flow is multiples of what it takes to live the life that you're looking to do. David Green on BiggerPockets a couple of times has said, we don't retire on cash flow. The first time I saw it, I thought, oh, that's a clickbait thing. Obviously, it can't be what he's saying, but he was actually accurate. If it takes you $5,000 a month to live and you start getting $5,000 a month in cash flow, that's not when you retire. That's not enough of a buffer to handle a bear market, a health concern, something that you weren't expecting coming up. But when you have multiples, and the bigger your freedom number is, the smaller the multiplier you need. Like if it takes you $20,000 a month to live and you hit 40,000, that's probably a good enough multiplier. It takes me about 4,000 a month. So when I hit 16, I was comfortable retiring. So 4 times multiplier, because my cost of living is very small because I'm still house hacking. Actually, just recently moved into my 3rd house hack. It is a self-funded house hack burr that's modified because I may or may not refinance at the end. The purpose of these live streams now is an intro like I just did, which will be its own standalone video in Futureland. And for the rest of the live stream, which is going to last as long as the questions do, my goal is to answer questions, which are hopefully going to show up in the chat, where I answer questions on financial freedom, investing in buy and hold real estate, and any other question you can think of. But I probably have horrible advice when it comes to parenting, relationships, politics, religion, pretty much everything except for financial freedom. So I see that Dividend Dave is first today. Magic. Awesome that you pulled it out. I see Tom. A couple of super chats popped in here. Tom Kine, howdy. Hope you are doing well. What's going on with the work situation? I heard that was changing last time we talked. Watching from Tennessee tonight. And then I will look through because I usually miss a question if it comes up with a super chat. Super chats are appreciated. It is a way to let YouTube know that somebody likes the content and maybe they're going to share it with more people. Buzz Tim, howdy. Thank you for the super chat. I appreciate it. And I'm going to look through again to see if I see a question from you, because sometimes super chats don't have enough length for your question. And so if I miss it, I apologize. Adam Calhoun, howdy. If everyone is having a good night, thanks. I hope you are too. Joe Kuhn, that is awesome that you are here. I referenced your messaging in my content. That's so funny. I message you all the time. Usually when I talk retirement, I literally say, go to Joe Kuhn's, and I spell it too, Kuhn's channel. And what I reference the most is retire to something, not from something. That was one of the biggest, no kidding to everybody watching. I found Joe a little bit before I retired last year. And that was the thing that told me, if I retire, what am I going to do? It's one of the biggest Sorry, I'm fanboying out because the guy I watch all the time is in my comments. Yeah. Cool. So to answer the questions, Dividend Dave, to Bill, and holding off on my post for you. So Bill waited for you. Nice that. Amelia, howdy. All-Nighter Hider. How's it going? Do I stop YouTube from wanting to put in those things? Anna K, howdy. How are you? Hopefully, I think the Tacoma Phi local meetup is happening next Tuesday. I'm hoping to be, there might be Wednesday too. Lumberjack Landlord. Howdy, I see there's a question here. Why did Dion retire this year? Because he knew he could bust my chops a lot more if he retired before me. There actually was a couple of months, Matt, where people were wondering who was going to retire first. I'm getting things ready for you. We're here waiting in retired land. Excited for you to get here. Anna K, keep missing members only session. It is every Saturday at 4 p.m. It's 2 Saturdays a month. So it won't be this coming one, but it'll be the next one. Do you have members only this Labor Day weekend? Probably not, if that's this weekend. The members only, for anybody watching, they're super boring. And really what we do is we look at deals. We open up emails from agents. We look and we do a stream of consciousness to actually look at real estate deals. And if I put that here on regular YouTube, I think it would kill my channel because people would click out when they realized it was just us talking about different deals. We look at my market, we look at your market, we look at factors we would consider, websites we would go to for information, like you could track population trends by county websites or where U-Haul's trucks are going, how you would find out what the parking is like in a situation, things that matter in the neighborhood, what you're looking for, things to avoid. Nick, howdy, I'm going to retire March of 24 as soon as my fourplex is stabilized and I get a DSCR lender to pay off. Awesome. Keep letting us know how it goes with that. Pay off my private money lender with this BRRRR deal on the fourplex. Let me know how that goes. I'm actually curious. I'm always curious how a BRRRR goes. I remember when Millennial Mike started 2 BRRRRs last year, interest rates doubled during those. He still ended up doing them successfully. For anybody who is watching my content for the first time, you're going to hear BRRRR talked about a lot. It's a big buzzword, especially with BiggerPockets. It was for the last decade, we had an uptrending price market and a downtrending interest rate market. So BRRRR was very common, very easy to be successful at. Not easy, but easier than in most markets. That's not the market that we're in now. So if you're someone like Nick, you have a few deals and you're doing a BRRRR, I waited till the 12th year, right? I was stabilized, retired early, financially free, and then I'm doing my first BRRRR. It's not what I suggest starting with. That doesn't mean I don't think it's a good and successful program that people can do. It's just something I think get the basics down first before you jump into it. Andrew, howdy. I'm guessing the internet might be giving him a hard time in Thailand or wherever he was planning on broadcasting from. So I'm hoping the internet works. I'm going to Thailand, I believe in December. I'll be there for 3 or 4 months. I was talking to Matt and Zuber this morning, and I was planning on 5 months. So really it just depends on what day you talk to me. You should reach financial freedom. These are hard problems that you have. These are the problems I'm hoping all of you have. Tom, there you go. I knew there was a question. How did you and Millennial Mike meet and become friends? This is actually something Millennial Mike talks about on his channel, probably better than I do because he's more into Instagram and more social media platforms. Like I'm old, so I'm on Facebook and I stay in touch with my older friends that way. And I'm here on YouTube. Me and Millennial Mike met because of YouTube. I made the channel and I thought I would like to have a local meetup group. So I made the Tacoma FI group on Facebook where we got together once a month, and it's investors from stocks and crypto and real estate. So it's FI related. It's not so much real estate related. And Millennial Mike went to it. So we met through YouTube, through social media. We did not know each other as investors before that. And I've heard Mike say this a few times, and I think this would be the experience for a lot of you watching. When you go to a local meetup, I think at the time, Millennial Mike had 8 rentals. He was house hacking a duplex in a high cost of living area and investing in Gary, Indiana, a lower cost of living area with property management at a distance. And he has great content on how he got that strategy started. But he came to the meetup because he thought he was going to a local investor meetup. He only has 8 rentals and has only been doing it for a few years. When he showed up, I don't have hundreds of units. Like Matt and Zuber both have over 100 units. My goal is to have less units than I do now and increase the cash flow. So I don't even want more units. There was at that meeting, Mike and me, and I don't think there was anybody else there that had more than maybe 2 or 3 rentals. You don't have to have thousands of deals or transactions or a bunch of rentals to be successful in this business. Financial freedom for me happened when I had, I think, financial independence happened with 7 rentals. I was making more with 7 units than I was when I was a police officer. Now I have 18 and the cash flow is a lot more than when I was about 4 times as when I was a police officer. So it was really cool to meet Mike there because he came in kind of going, oh, this is an investor group. What am I going to learn? And he's hopefully learned because everybody can teach you something. But he, I think, was shocked at the stage he was in where there was people there trying to meet other investors. That's how we met. And then we've started doing shorts together. I took a trip to Gary, Indiana. I did a portfolio tour, went to each one of his rentals. We text more than teenagers. So, Oliver, howdy. And then Joe Kuhn, thank you for the message on the math of time. It's actually something I talk about on my channel. It is how, using the math of time, I've actually, in over a decade, never had a late or missing rent payment because I have a conversation with tenants and explain the math of time to them. And here's the edited Cliff Notes version. Sometimes a tenant will say, hey, I have this life event going on. I'm going to be paying my rent a week late. Is that okay? And I do a couple of things. The first ones kind of sound mean, but it's actually not. The first thing I say is, you can absolutely pay your rent late. There are late fees. And of course, if it's a death in the family or something like that, you're not going to charge late fees. You're going to be human about this. But I say this is how the late fees work, just in case it's like they messed up their finances and they're looking through their list of things they're going to pay and they're just looking for one to pay late. They chose rent. Here's how the late fees work. But as a favor to the tenant, I'm going to serve eviction papers the day that it's past the grace period, because tenants can then apply for rental assistance, but they can't even talk to those agencies until they have the eviction papers in their hand. So that's the first thing I do. But the second thing is I explain the math of time to a tenant. And this is to anybody who has bills. If a tenant pays their rent 1 week late, the average renter usually has about 4 weeks to get the rent together for each month. If we pay the rent late a week, that means they had 5 weeks this month, and that's a great thing for them this month. But it sets them up for failure because now for next month, they only have 3 weeks left. If you only have 3 weeks to get the rent together, it's going to be harder. So we'd be literally setting up the tenant for an eviction going forward. I have that short conversation with the tenant. Every single time the tenants that have ever asked, hey, can I pay the rent late, have then decided that either they don't need to do the thing they were going to spend the money on, or they looked at their bills and decided something else was less important. So I use the math of time to explain several different things. I like the part about living more, not longer. And I wonder if I got that off of your channel, because it sounds like something you would say, Joe. And I lost my, here we go. Anna K, I totally agree with you about go years and go slow years. That, I guarantee, is something I got from Joe's channel. I think you reference that often. Nick, question. Can I walk away from my W-2 with 7 rentals and $5K a month in passive cash flow, which covers my net, and then work for the next 3 years, scaling from 7 rentals to 15 to 20? It would take a much deeper dive into your portfolio to see how fast you can scale, because remember, there's 2 main ways to scale a rental portfolio. One of the biggest differences between me and Joe Kuhn is that Joe is mostly a stocks guy and I'm mostly a real estate guy. Although if you pay attention to when Joe's talking, he has done several real estate deals with building equity and then I believe 1031ing them, or using the IRS 121 rule to avoid the capital gains tax. So he's mostly a tax guy. He uses the buckets method, which I would love to have him come on my channel and explain the buckets method to everybody, because it's not my thing and I stay in my lane. I don't do stocks, so I don't talk or teach stocks. I do be very transparent when I say, when you invest for financial freedom, what's most important is that you pick an asset class that excites you, right? Something that you're going to stick with because you're emotionally invested in it when something goes wrong, because it will. So real estate excites me. If stocks excite you, if crypto, if running a business, being an entrepreneur, whatever the thing is that you focus on and master, none of them are better than the other. It's that you focused on the asset class that excited you and mastered it to reach financial freedom. So, Nick, to look at that, so 7 rentals is where I was making about $2,700 a month. And as a police officer, I was making $1,300 every 2 weeks take home. So it was about $100 more a month. That is not financial freedom. That's fine. There's a difference between financial independence and financial freedom. Financial independence is when you have enough cash flow coming in that you can change jobs without really worrying about it because you're making as much as you need to from your assets. Financial freedom comes when you don't need a job, right? And if you just have enough to cover your expenses, that is definitely not the time to retire. But if you invested for the next 3 years, kept working and scaled your rentals more, now that would depend on the two ways to do this. What I did took longer. It took up to 10 years, really. That 8 to 12 years, I averaged it out to 10, is I recycled cash flow. Michael Zuber from One Rental at a Time, Matt the Lumberjack Landlord, have much larger portfolios, better cash flow, but it took, longer years because they recycled capital. So if you're going to recycle capital, you'll scale faster. So you get those bragging rights, bigger numbers. You have thinner margins for a longer period of time because you're going to be adding debt to existing assets. And recycling capital is either a home equity line of credit, a cash out refinance, or selling a property to 1031 to take those proceeds and buy another property or more properties. I've never done that. Never sold to 1031, never used the IRS 121 rule. I've never taken out a HELOC or cashed out money. I recycled cash flow. So every time I acquired a new asset, it was a couple of years between asset, right? It wasn't fast. Those first 5 years suck. We say that often. Then the income snowball kicks in and it starts to go faster. The next 5 years are a lot faster, but bigger margins, right? I'm averaging over $1,000 a door on each one of my rentals because I don't burr. That's one of the reasons why I might not do the refinance part on this self-funded burr that I'm in, is because just moving here will add $2,800 a month in profit, not cash, not income, but profit after all of the principal, interest, taxes, and insurance, because this doesn't have a mortgage added, and setting aside for repairs, maintenance, and vacancy, because I rented out the place that I moved from, and I'm renting out the other unit in the duplex that I'm in. I could cash this out, reduce my cash flow, and add more units. So when we're looking at, can you retire within a certain amount of time? Are you recycling cash flow or capital? Cash flow, you can usually retire sooner, but you're going to have a smaller portfolio. You're not going to have the exponential growth that can happen from appreciation happening on a larger portfolio. So you have to know what your ultimate goal was. My goal wasn't a large portfolio. My goal was, and this is how I phrase it, the right amount of cash flow from the least amount of rentals. And I think we had another super chat here from Dale. Howdy, Dale. You are a modern Carlton Sheets. That's how I got started 25 years ago. Awesome. Nice. Thank you. Thank you for that, Dale. Make sure I'm not missing a question here from Dale. If you're still there, Joe, you should do live streams. It's the one thing I think I'm missing on your channel. I think people would love to ask you questions like this. I would, because I don't know anything about stocks. Howdy, Sam. And then Adam here. Joe, I enjoyed your channel. Dion introduced us to a lot of us. Awesome. Thank you. And then Chanda withdrew a message to make me lose sleep forever and ever and wonder what was there. Joe Kuhn, we learn from each other. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. That's awesome. Sam, I saw a house that is written as freestanding on county website, listed as double mobile homes on tax website. Is this a red flag? It means if you haven't seen anything yet that would turn you away from the deal, you need to do a deeper dive. And I don't know enough info about that one to find out how you would do it. But you can always email me, Sam. I'll put my email here in the chat with information if you want help on that. Here's an example. I just purchased this duplex. The listing in the county basically had it as a single family house, but in the description, it said duplex. There were no images. I couldn't tell if there were 2 meters. I couldn't tell if it was separate units. Couldn't tell if there was 2 addresses. It was really vague. But the numbers worked. The ARV on this place, most of the investors I've talked with around here say it's around $1 million. I estimate 750. So I want to be very conservative. It was listed for 500. I watched days on market till they piled up, dropped to 477. I offered 4, stayed there. We went back and forth for a few months. I paid 4 for a place where I expect the ARV to be 750. I'm probably going to put 50,000 as I'm totaling everything up and getting close to being done with the rehab. It's going to be around 50,000. So The numbers on this make it a successful BRRRR, even if I refi, which will increase my yield, reduce my cash flow. Weird how real estate works. But when I was looking at it and trying to find it, I went to the county website. I had my agent ask several questions, couldn't get a straight answer. Me and Millennial Mike drove by to try to figure it out, couldn't see where there are 2 meters, but it's on the side. You can't see unless we trespass, which don't do that. I called utility companies and I found out something. It was very funny. So I called the utility company and there's electric and gas coming here. So I'm not going to mention which one I talked to because I don't want to get somebody in trouble. Because they started the conversation with, I'm sorry, you don't own the property. We really can't tell you anything. And then they ended the conversation with, yes, there are 2 meters for this type of utility. And it was shut off in February due to non-payment. So you can't share any information, but you told me that they're not paying their bill. So wouldn't know that if I didn't call. So I did a deeper dive to figure out what I could about the property. So if you find something like that with conflicting information, you're going to have to think of different ways to verify the information. Maybe county records, maybe having your agent reach out and ask questions of the listing agent to clarify, maybe driving by. If you make an offer on something like that, if you go through the due diligence and you know the area average rents, you know what your yield is going to be, you know that this return would be good enough yield for you to pursue when you make an offer, just make sure you have an inspection period. Or you're going to have an inspection clause, which will have a 5 to 10 day period where you get to plan, schedule an inspection. You can back out without losing your earnest money. During that period of time, that's when you would actually ask for records and proof, current leases, schedule the inspection to go and see what the property is actually, what it actually is, and make sure you get on that right away so that you have time to make your decision after you have the information where you can still back out without losing your earnest money. Wealth building journey. Thank you, Chester. Put in Joe's channel, which is one you guys should check out. Like I said, he retired at 54. He's been retired now for about 4 years, primarily invests in stocks, uses the bucket method, and is just really articulate. And so you should be watching. If you're getting close or even thinking, but you should be thinking about retirement if you're investing. His is definitely a channel to check out. Sam. What I mean is, how do we deal with this? Is it going to cause problems in the future with insurance, etc.? Who to call to ask more about this? Okay, so hopefully my information helped you there. Can cause insurance issues. I have a triplex, which had a similar issue with insurance. It's a house and a duplex. One of them is an ADU. I don't know which one it is. For county tax purposes, it's one address. For utilities, it's one address. There's 3 designations. For insurance, it's 2 separate properties, and it's just a weird thing. I had to insure each building on their own policy. That doesn't mean it was a no-go, and it didn't cost me any more. It was just that was how we could write the policy to make it work. Janitor on fire. Howdy. I'm 2/3 through Chad Carson's new book, The Small and Mighty Real Estate Investor. Excellent book for those of us who want just enough properties like someone else I know. Chad Carson. I'm going to have to check that out. Always looking for the next good Audible. Listen, Audible tease. I just finished about a month ago now narrating one rental at a time for Michael Zuber. Should be replacing the robot voice that's on Audible now with hopefully my voice is better than a robot voice. Wealth building journey. BRRRR is buy, rehab, rent out, refinance, and repeat. Yeah, million. Howdy, Joe Kuhn is awesome. Totally agree. He helped me with my first interview. I got the job and moved last week. Oh, congratulations. Nice. Josh, would you consider going to a little lower in an area with rent control where you can raise rents in the first 90 days? Let me make sure I process this question right, because most people don't realize rent control makes owners richer and more tenants homeless. Would you consider going a little lower in an area with rent control where you can raise rents in the first 90 days? I generally don't recommend lowering rents. A lot of times you'll see people ask this question, especially on BiggerPockets. They'll say, I've listed my rental. It's been sitting for 2 or 3 weeks. When do I lower the rent? And that's not what you actually do. What I like to do, an example, is we're going to steal the idea from big apartment complexes. When people talk about the BRRRR method, right? It's most people are thinking, I'm going to buy a house, fix it up, do all this, rent it out, rehab it, repeat. It's the the process is used on large multifamily apartments, right? Because their value is based on NOI, net operating income. So I operate in the 4 units or less, so I have 30-year fixed rate debt. But there are people who buy 5, 10, 20 unit apartment complexes where the value of the property for 4 units or less, it's based on the comps area. For 5 units or more, it's based on your net operating income. So, right, your profit. If you can increase your profit or decrease your expenses, you can increase the value of the property. It's really what Cody and Christian multifamily strategies do, right? They look at NOI, they increase it to generate literally millions of dollars in net worth. And cash flow comes from that too. So before we lower the rent, I'm going to take this from apartment complexes as well. You take from apartment complexes the idea that they don't lower the rent, right? You'll see eventually rents can go down in an area, right? Good little historical lesson. Since we've started tracking the data in 1940, market-wide rents have never gone down. There are areas where rent can go down, but market-wide it's never happened. Google that, and you'll see the first image that pops up. But in areas they can, right? If in the .com crash hits Silicon Valley, rents tank. The car manufacturers move away from Detroit, rents tank. But market-wide, we've never had a rental decrease. We've had some plateaus. But instead of rents going down, what you do is you offer concessions. Like, watch any large apartment complex in your area. They're never going to say, we've lowered the rent. They're going to say half month rent free, 1 month rent free, free moving truck, something to draw people in. That's the idea if you have area average rents, right? But if there are some times where people go, I'm going to list my unit, I'm going to try a really high number, right? This is not what's in their rent box. They haven't built the rent box. They're just thinking, I'd really like to get this number. And you put it out there. Yeah, 2-3 weeks later, if you're not getting any hits at all, no interest, then you might have to really study, build a rent box. Most of us understand if you invest in real estate, you have a buy box, right? What area am I going to invest in? What asset class am I going to invest in there? What areas am I going to avoid inside that area? What are the reasons why I chose that market? We've got the how to choose your market, several videos on that. So we know how to build our buy box, but you need to build a rent box. I've got a couple of videos on how to set rents in a hot market because we used to be able to use Rentometer. You can go to rentometer.com and they would track rents. And when rents were going up on a slight trajectory, they could use 3 months, 6 months, or 1 year historical data and say, here's what the rentals in that area have been. So here's what your probably is. But in between 2021 and 2022, rent spiked so much, Rentometer is not very accurate. So instead of getting a snapshot by going to just the website, you go to Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace, Zillow, apartments.com, and for at least 2 weeks, you track the rents because a snapshot isn't going to tell you anything. Sometimes people will list a property and they shot too low and they get 100 applications within the first couple of days and they realize, wow, this is too low. So they pull it off, they cancel the listing, they put it back at a higher rent. You won't know that unless you're looking for a couple of weeks. Sometimes people do put one and it sits there for a long time and then they start offering concessions or lowering the rent because they were just shooting for a hopefully high number. But after about 2 weeks, you can get a good feel for what rents are per unit, per bedroom count. And you have to think, as an owner, we think very differently than a tenant does. Owners think in age of building, square footage. Tenants think of parking, bedroom count. I mean, to the point where the Section 8, the Housing Authority, they only count bedroom count. They don't look at anything like family room, bonus room, den, garage, pool, hot tub. None of that matters. They'll just go bedroom count. So build a rent box from the perspective of the tenant to see what your rent should be. Andrew, howdy. I heard David Green say a few weeks ago that we should adjust our expectation of what a good deal is in the current market versus what it may have been 2 to 3 years ago versus cash flow. I suppose that also means we newer investors should change our expectations about how long it might take to reach financial freedom via these means as well. So before I go into this, I want everybody to know, and I've been very clear, and I have said this before, I am a David Green fan, right? It's very rare to see a cop who is as articulate as he is. And when you do presentations like this, people don't realize you have to be formulating a sentence 3 sentences ahead of the words coming out of your mouth so that you can get your tone and inflection right. And he does that very well. And he's knowledgeable about real estate. It's just a weird amalgamation of things that you just don't expect. So I'm a fan of his. When he says things like, and somebody asked me the question recently because David Green in a comment said, we should be changing the way we invest to get cash flow later based on rental appreciation, and some other way he said it. And it's not so much that the market is different. David Green is talking from his perspective. He has rentals. He has cash flow. He has financial freedom. It's one of the most successful YouTube channels that there is. When you hear anybody say, I'm investing and making an appreciation play, right? So I won't really try to use a stock analogy here because, again, it's not my thing. But if you see somebody that bought penny stocks or a single stock, like they bought Amazon or they bought Tesla, right? Or Zuber from one rental at a time buys crypto. They take a portfolio that generates income and cash flow, and they take a very small percentage of it. The more wealthy you are, the more cash flow you have, the larger that will seem, even though it's a small percentage of their overall portfolio. And they basically play with it. It's a gamble. That's why they call it an appreciation play. If somebody has a large portfolio, yes, you could take a small amount of it and buy in a place where you think it's going to appreciate, but there's not going to be much cash flow. And if it works out, great. And if it doesn't, you throw that money away and you don't even notice it, right? So you'll hear people with larger portfolios talking about investing for appreciation. Here's the shift. This is my actual opinion of the shift that's happened in the real estate market. For the last decade, and I mentioned this earlier, we had an uptrending price market with a downtrending interest rate market. And what you needed, you had all of this buyer demand. You wanted to be fast. You needed, this is what I did. So maybe not you, me. I needed agents to be responsive and lenders to be responsive. When I saw a listing come on the MLS, because all my deals are from the MLS with conventional lending, so no seller financing, no driving for dollars, no mailers, nothing creative. I'm super lazy. I'm the lazy real estate investor. I wanted to be fast. So my agent and my lender knew that I had to have my letter of pre-qualification and my docu-signed offer in within an hour, maybe two, on a weekend if it's late at night, 2 hours, or I'm going to the next agent and the next lender to get this done, because I wanted an offer in with the seller before they were going to get inundated with a bunch of offers that were waiving contingencies, over asking, offering to name their baby after the owner, whatever the seller, whatever it was. I wanted in fast so that I can get a seller who wasn't sure they were going to get their price accept my offer. They get the sunk cost theory where they feel like they've accepted my offer. So even if a better one comes in, they're probably not going to take it. And for a while that worked. Half my portfolio I acquired by being in second position. So I'd get it in fast, but a better offer would come in. And now the other offers might disappear because they've got an accepted offer. I always reached back out, had my agent say, congratulations on getting a better offer than ours. If that falls through due to funding, they back out, whatever the problem is, our offer stands as it was submitted. So I'm in second position. Half my portfolio was acquired from second position because a lot of times people try to lock down a price and then over negotiate with the seller. The seller will just say, all right, fine, we'll back out. We don't want to deal with you because we've got a better offer or a good enough offer already. That's what we needed in that market. Well, now we have interest rates that have doubled. We have sellers that are trapped. We have very limited supply because people were trapped because you can't sell a 2-bedroom house and go buy a 3-bedroom house when interest rates have doubled and prices have continued to go up. It's too much of an increase. So people will put in bunk beds for an added family member instead of getting the bigger house. It's called the interest rate lock. People have 2 or 3% mortgages and now it would be 6 or 7%. So they'd be over doubling their payment to move. So we don't have very much inventory hitting the market. So what we do now is we have an opportunity that we haven't had for the last 10 years. Those last 10 years, you had no idea if you were buying from a motivated seller or not because they just took your offer. If a property sits on the market, now that this is what the shift is, and this is how I recommend finding your deals, that's still cash flow. Watch days on market, know your area, know what rents you can get, watch rents in your area. When something average days on market in my area is between 6 to 9 days on the market, depending on the county that you look at around here. So if things sat for 30, maybe 40 days, that seller's starting to get really nervous. I was watching properties that were on the market over 100 days. Here's how you can identify a motivated seller. If it's on the market over 100 days, so first, if they list it for 90 days, you have to relist it in most MLSs to be on longer than 90 days. So they've relisted once already. If this is somebody that's just thinking prices have gone up so much, it'd be kind of cool if we sold for that. But if we don't, we'll just keep it as a rental or we'll still live here. They're not motivated. You make a low offer, they're going to ignore you. But if you see a property like the one that I purchased, it's $500,000 on the market over 100 days. I offer $400,000. ARV is $750, right? So I'm getting it at what, 60% of the value after the work is done. If they weren't motivated, they ignore you. If they are motivated, they counter. So this one went to 477, countered 444, countered 422. And when I found out that they had stopped paying their utility because of non-payment in February, I stayed at 400 and they eventually came back and accepted. Long days on market will be your way to identify motivated sellers. So it isn't that prices and rates are so high you can't find a deal. It's that we have to hunt harder now for a deal that sits longer that someone else doesn't see the value in. Once I closed on this, and several of the investors around here who had made 450 offers but had backed out wouldn't have ever thought that this seller would have dropped as low as they did. That's what shifted. Instead of speed, days on market, ridiculously low, insulting offers, and see what their counter is. I don't recommend investing for future appreciation or future cash flow. We want cash flow day one, or you add decades to your investing. Angel R says, hit the like button, which is ironic because every time you hit the like button, an angel gets its wings. Andy, howdy. I got an applicant that has a 760 credit score and is supposed to be a driver manager at an LLC. However, LLC phone number does not connect and their LLC address is a virtual address, red flag. Applicant is supposedly relocating for work, but if address is virtual, it's weird. So here's how I verify my tenants. And I kind of like the way you're looking at it. I look at credit score. That matters to me. So 760 would meet. I would go 700 or higher, right? Because I don't look at income. Right? And I look at no evictions ever. So those are the two things that matter. But while I don't look at income, I do verify employment because you are making a macroscopic decision on a microscopic amount of information. So you have very limited ways to catch the person in something that you wouldn't want in your property. If you can't verify employment, and what I wouldn't do is the number they provided, I wouldn't use anyway. Whenever you find out their source of employment, find the name of their company from the internet, Google their phone number, their email, get a hold of their HR and verify employment. Because it's very easy to have somebody, fake a company, fake a phone number, fake an answer, fake a manager saying their employment. It's a little harder to have a website where you can find the company, call them, get a hold of HR. And again, I'm not caring what they make. I've never cared about income. If you set your income requirements, which a lot of people do, most of the landlords I know set an income threshold of 2.5 or 3 times the rent, right? I don't do that because you lose a lot of the people like bartenders, waiters, cosmetologists who make the bulk of their income through gratuity, right? But I still verify where they work. So I don't know that it's a red flag, meaning I wouldn't deal with that person. It might be a red flag where I say, look, I need the name of your company and then verify it. If you can't verify it, then I'd probably move on to the next applicant. No, computer, I don't want to do an update right now. Oliver, great content, Dion. Your support makes us certain we can do this. I have faith in you. It is not going to happen overnight, and it is not going to be easy. But with training, with education, with the learning the skill set, you can make it easier than it would be, and you can mitigate the risk. Sam, Dion, you always look like you are in Siberia. That is true. I'm a desert rat. Grew up in Southern California on the desert. I'm always in Washington. I'm always cold. Richard, howdy. Andrew, met an investor this weekend who seemed to believe that even if you're just breaking even your cash flow every month, you should buy a deal a year just for the tax savings. Dion's take on this. So kind of back to what we just talked about with David Green. So if you're just breaking even, are you accounting for future expenses? then are you adding cash flow? Now, there are people, when Michael Zuber first started investing, he wanted to get to 4 rentals because it would give him a better retirement when he retired at normal 65-year age. Remember, when it comes to retirement, let's stop thinking age and start thinking how much, not how old, how much. He just wanted a better retirement. So yeah, if he bought a deal and if then cash flow would be paid off in 20, 30 years, he'd have a better retirement. What is your goal? Is your goal to retire with paid off properties that might cash flow? Could make sense. If your goal is to create cash flow that you can reinvest to hit the income snowball and within a decade make work completely optional, that is not the strategy that I would use. Me being lazy is one of the most powerful motivators that there are. I wanted out of having to work sooner than later. So no, I wouldn't do that. Some people try to justify it by taking an accountant's view on it. And they'll say, well, profit includes appreciation, principal pay down, tax benefits, right? And IRR. They'll say, based on your internal rate of return, it's a great investment. But if you're not generating cash flow, you're adding too many decades to your investing. You're not adding growth to your ability to invest. You're not increasing your savings rate. And a lot of people talk about saving 10 or 15%. The goal, hopefully for everybody watching this video, if your goal is financial freedom, here's your savings rate goal, because it doesn't make sense to have a goal of anything other than this. 100%. If you can't save 100% of what you're making from your job, then you still need your job. If the goal is financial freedom, it means that the cash flow should be more than it costs you to live, which means anything you make from work, you should be able to save. If you're not adding cash flow on an investment, it's not one I would pursue. I would be watching days on market. So other shift that I did, I invest in between Tacoma and Olympia in Washington, which is south of Seattle. I'm not in Tacoma or Olympia in Washington, but I'm around them. I expanded my market out and hit about 11 more markets, and I found 2 of them that made sense. So you might shift how you're looking. Is it speed? Is it days on market? The footprint of your market, you might shift asset classes. When I first started, my goal was to find single family houses, house hack every couple of years, have 5 rentals in 10 years. But single family houses in my area don't cash flow, even if you house hack. So I went for small multifamily, like Josh or Dave. They just purchased those duplexes and they're doing their first house hacks. Lumberjack landlord, how are there this few likes? Come on, folks, show Dion some love. There will be no touching. And then my chat moved, which I appreciate because that means that there are more comments, more questions. If I haven't explained why the lives mean so much to me, every now and then we do a video. As a content creator, we go, I'm going to research a topic. I'm going to talk about, here's how you do healthcare after retirement. Here's how you calculate your freedom number. And I can put it into a chronological message type format where, educate people. But is that information I had to keep in my mind in order to reach financial freedom? Or is that a concept of financial freedom that can motivate you to want to achieve it? During a live stream, you're asking questions. And if you ask a very detailed tax question that would obviously take a CPA, I'll kind of guess at an answer and I'll tell you it's a guess. And then I'll say, this is why we have a CPA. But if you ask me, how do you calculate the yield on a rental property? Like, it is, because I need to be able to make snap decisions when I'm looking at properties to determine if I need to take a deeper look or if I need to just pass. So during a live, when you ask these questions, when someone else asks a question, you get to see what is top of mind awareness. What does a real estate investor, what does somebody who reached financial freedom and retired early keep in their mind as information readily available? Go. Wealth building journey. The math of time is easier to explain than the time value of money, especially after drinking the extra strength water. That is true. Hit the like button, everybody. Cheers. Chanda actually put in a message and didn't take it back, so I will lose less sleep tonight. Rental income double of my regular job income. Good time to retire or not? Any suggestions? Okay, so you have the right idea that there's income and then there's income from your work. So there's two different things, but here's a couple of other things to consider. A lot of people make the mistake of saying, I need to replace my W-2 income. And that's actually not a good metric to use. There are people who use credit cards every month, and so they're spending more than they make. So replacing your W-2 actually isn't freedom at all. There are people who don't realize that a lot of your expenses go down after you retire. W-2 income is taxed at almost the highest amount of tax there is, versus passive income, portfolio income, rental income is taxed at a much lower rate. And when you add in things like depreciation and write-offs, I still have, even though I had 6 figures in profit last year, haven't paid a penny in rental income tax. My tenants pay over $40,000 a year in rental and property tax, but I haven't paid any rental income tax. So my taxes went down a lot from when I had a W-2. I don't commute. I don't eat out at the places I would eat out when I was working as much. A lot of the expenses have just gone down when you retire. Health insurance costs more because when I was working, my employer paid 80 or 90% of the premium, and now I'm paying 100% of it, which should not be a barrier to you retiring. Don't let healthcare be the thing that keeps you in a job. There's an asset for every expense. It costs money to eat. It costs money to travel, entertainment. So I have the vehicle duplex, which is now cash flowing about maybe $2,100 a month. So that money is being set aside to buy the next ridiculously stupid, nice vehicle I buy, which you don't do while you're building your portfolio. That's a later thing. I have the travel triplex that pays for housing while I'm traveling, the vodka fourplex, the healthcare duplex, the whatever it is. It's just you need an asset to cover the expense. So if your rental income is double your W-2, how much of your W-2 is it taking you to live? So the first thing to determine, Chenda, is what's called your freedom number. And a lot of people try to get very creative and they think, how much am I going to spend on travel and food? And you have most of the data. Take the last 6 months worth of data. You are going to shift for healthcare. You can actually start looking for healthcare now, figure out what your COBRA will cost, how many months you can use COBRA, whether you would or not. You can use the America's Care Act to get, one of the beautiful things about real estate is 6 figures in profit, carried it forward a loss. So you get all of the benefits from the America's Care Act for healthcare because you don't have any income if you're doing real estate. But how much is it going to cost you to live every month? That's your freedom number. And then do you have a comfortable buffer, right? The smaller your freedom number is, the bigger that buffer should be in percentages. If it takes you $1,000 a month to live, I would say don't retire until you have $5,000, maybe even more $1,000 a month coming in. For me, it takes about 4,000. I wanted 16. So when I hit 16, I felt kind of stupid going to work. So then I retired. If your W-2 income is a lot more than it costs you to live and you're getting twice of that coming from your rentals, math-wise, with real estate, it's different than stocks. With stocks, I think you want somebody like a professional to give you a one-time fee portfolio. What do you call it? Joe would know. He would rattle it off because he's the stock guy. But with real estate, are you accounting for future expenses with that rent? You said rental income. Is that income? People say cash flow. How much of your rent's coming in? Take out all your expenses, principal, interest, taxes, insurance, property management, and your future expenses. What percentage are you setting aside for repairs, maintenance, vacancy? After that, what's left in profit? If that profit that's left is twice your W-2, you might be close. I would email me more details. I put my email in the chat earlier. I'll put it in again. If you want like a closer, more accurate estimate. I don't think that worked. There we go. Now you know what my macro is. Suggestions would be, if it's from rentals, not too many financial advisors can give you good advice on rentals. It usually isn't in their wheelhouse because they're more attuned with things that get them a fee, right? Not that they're bad. It's just that they mostly go for stock investing. Maybe talk to another investor, figure out that freedom number, and then figure out what your multiple of that freedom number is, 2, 3, 4 times before I would even think about retiring. And then what is retiring going to look like? like I say, from Joe Kuhn's channel, retire to something, not from something. If you're going to retire, what are you going to do? Is it going to be something that justifies not having your job? If you hate your job, you should already be looking for another one. That's what another benefit of financial freedom. You could take another job and not worry about the money that's coming in. Then there will be other people who will say, well, what about generational wealth? You can continue to grow your portfolio, and that is true. But I've talked about generational wealth as one of the worst things we could do for our kids. Right? I've got, hypothetically, we'll make up fictitious nieces and nephews who have their dad, hypothetically my brother, who has reached financial freedom with buy and hold real estate, retired at 50, has been retired 8 years now, and they haven't done anything. No rentals, not really pursuing a career, because their retirement is based on dad passing away, hypothetically. Do you want to do that to your kids? So if you're building generational wealth, I would make sure that you are, one, educating your kids the things you didn't know when you were a kid and not giving them all the things you didn't have. That's the Bruce Lee quote. But growing your portfolio beyond what you need, if it is to do, because a good person can do a lot of good with more money, sure. But what's your goal? What's your ultimate goal? Are you trying to have a big, huge portfolio, or are you just having financial freedom? Where you're trying to end up can dictate when you want to retire. I think based on the numbers there, which is a very limited thing, so you shouldn't trust my opinion on this. Never trust a random guy on YouTube. Jaspreet Singh from Minority Mindset, another channel you should be checking out. That's a hard one for someone else to tell you. I think there was another super chat that came in here from Dividend Dave. I want a tequila 10-plex. There you go. I didn't know you drank, Dave. Josh, I see a super chat here I missed. Thank you for that. I appreciate both of them. Dion, how thin of a return would interest you? And Josh, would you consider going a little lower? Oh, that's why that was the second question. Okay. I'm sorry, I missed that there. So when it comes to returns, Josh, let me make sure I answer your question right. I need a 10-year-old around here to help me handle the tech better. But from right out of the book, One Rental at a Time, Michael Zuber's thing is you learn the area average and then you try to beat it, right? So if the area average is 3 or 4, you shoot for a 5. I was finding 7s and 8s, so I shot for 10s, right? And for a while I couldn't find that, so I was looking at 8s and 9s until I expanded my market. If you're looking at a thin return, that's probably, I wouldn't go below the area average. And I definitely wouldn't go, I'm trying to think if there's a minimum return, because I hear there's some markets where you can only get 1 or 2% return, and is a 4% worth pursuing. I've also done the math on where a 5% return in real estate to me would be better than a 10% return in stocks or a savings account or any of those other investing strategies. So I like the way you worded it, though, how thin of a return of an interest, what would get you? Because I often get the question, what's the least amount of cash flow you would do per door? Which I do have a minimum per door, just, how much is it worth to justify dealing with a tenant, right? And maintaining a property and taking the risk. But I don't invest for cash flow per door. I invest for yield, or the return that you're talking about there. And then my chat moved here. And yeah, was that your first super chat, Dale? Thank you. That's pretty cool. Nick, huge thanks. You're welcome. Thank you very much. Adam Cajon, it would be awesome to have Joe come on and explain the bucket strategy. I will definitely reach out. If anybody knows him, let him know. If you're not still, can imagine Joe's still here watching this long in the video. I am currently evaluating a tenant-occupied duplex, tenant-occupied inspired by you. Awesome. That is my preferred properties to buy. This is the only burr I'm going to buy, the last one I'm going to buy. I prefer tenant-occupied, and then the binder strategy, of course. Strider, howdy. Thank you for watching. Oliver, tree question. If you are trying to build a wooden fence along the back of your neighbor behind, and there are a couple of trees that grew in the chain link fence, would you build around the tree or remove the tree? Is the tree on your side of the property or the neighbor's side of the property? You are limited to only cutting things that come onto your side. I have seen fences built around a tree. It depends on the purpose of the build, the height. What's your relationship like with your neighbor? And are they willing to let you cut things? So consider that. Whenever possible, I would never build a fence around a tree. If I had the option, I would remove the tree where the fence is going. So what's the relationship like with the neighbor? Are you able to cut the stuff of the tree to build the fence the way you want to? BuzzTune, what's the best way to evaluate and choose an attorney? Do you recommend an attorney as soon as you are a landlord? That is a great question, BuzzTune. There's two parts to it. Let me make sure I get to both of them. What's the best way to evaluate and choose an attorney? I start with reviews, and then I look at their focus. Right? I don't want to talk to a family law attorney about real estate. I want to make sure that they are focused on real estate. Probably look up eviction attorney in your area. That's generally the most of the time what you're going to be using an attorney for. Reviews, interact with, probably this is once you're under contract and you have a property and you're getting your leases together, this is when I would probably, personally, I retained an attorney for $1,500, right? So if I ever have an eviction that's already there, kind of like when you close on a property, you build this list of 24-hour-a-day plumbers in your area, 7-day-a-week, but not 24-hour-a-day, electrician, emergency service in your area. Who are you going to call for different problems? How do you build your list of handyman? But you also want to talk to the attorneys in your area to see which one you get along with, that's responsive to your answers, has fair rates and good reviews. But when you're putting your lease together, and there's several ways to get a lease, apartments.com, Zillow has leases, BiggerPockets has leases for in each state made by attorneys for pro members. Some states' websites, me and Millennium Mike both got our leases from this Washington State landlord tenant resource page that's no longer there, and took the lease. Here's why you want to interact with the attorney as you are having tenants. Took the lease to the attorney and I said, here's the lease I'm using. This attorney works in your area, in your court system, interacts with the judges that are there, right? They all get to know, they're all officers of the court. They get to know each other. They know what works in an area and what doesn't. So ask the attorney, is there any specific verbiage that you would want in this lease that will make your job easier if we ever go through an eviction together? And then my attorney gave me a couple of things to put in there, little blurbs in my lease, and I've retained them, haven't used them. That attorney has been used by some of my friends, and we've had a good experience with it, but I have myself haven't gone through an eviction yet. I should have on my first tenant, but in a decade, I haven't had any issues. First tenant, where we usually make all of our mistakes. Financial firefighter, aloha. Trucking landlord, howdy, it's Dion time. Josh Manfred, low on initial margin, not rentals in Oregon. Okay, yeah, so the thing to know in Oregon is while there is rent control, it doesn't apply to small multifamily if you are occupying one of the units. I don't know the rest of the laws, so you want to know your local laws. I do know that an example is in California, if you own a single family house or a duplex in your own name, there's no rent control. But as soon as you put it into an LLC, it is hit by rent control. Let's make sure I'm not missing any other super chats here. Okay. No problem. I think he missed my first one with the first part of the question. Yeah, I'm really sorry, Josh. I did. I kind of butchered that. I do owe you a super chat. Definitely. I think the best thing, Josh, is my email's in there. If you email me the question, I will give you a detailed email answer. All-nighter hider, I'm back. Roman, howdy. Are you now shopping for another property? My area, Florida, is bad and yours is too. If you were naked and afraid, what area would you choose to start your real estate investment portfolio? I still prefer to invest locally. I was considering Gary, Indiana, but not because Gary is a good place. It's because the most important thing when it comes to picking a market, and I'm in a lot of groups where people talk about this. How do you pick a market? It's one of the very most common things, because so many people say, I'm in an expensive area, I can't buy. Like California, right? You could fit, 17 states inside of California. So there's a lot of areas that aren't in the expensive areas. Michael Zubert lives in Sacramento, but invests in Fresno. My brother invests in Kern County, right on the edge of LA County, where prices and rents still make sense. In Florida, there are places north of Cape Coral. The entire town is doubling in population size. Like, where are you looking? How far away are you looking before you decide to go at a distance? People will talk about, when you pick a market, here are the things you look for. Is population going up or going down? Are there enough economic drivers to support your sources of tenants if something changes? So a base, a port, college, hospital, Boeing, Amazon, large population, what are all those things? What's the crime statistic? They give you all these things, but they always miss the most important metric. And the one reason why I was going to choose Gary, Indiana, if I went to investing at a distance: trusted boots on the ground. The reason I invest locally is because I live here and I know the market. I know the area. I know the areas to avoid. In Gary, Indiana, the only reason I would invest there, and the only reason Millennial Mike is investing there, is because we knew an investor who is investing there. Millennial Mike knows Mark Matsky from Matsky Finance, and Mark was investing there for a while. Mike watched him and then used his boots on the ground to get going there. I would use, with his permission, Mike's trusted boots on the ground to grow into that market. Ended up finding deals here that make sense by expanding my market, watching days on market. So I'm still not at the point of hunting for added distance deals. I don't want to add properties, but this is a problem that I'm going to make sure I work as hard as I can to make sure that you all have. Once you reach financial freedom and you have multiples of your freedom number coming in, the number, the cash, the money builds up, and you have to do something with it. So yeah, I'm probably going to add properties. I'm going to be more picky with the deals, kind of like the one I'm in. I wanted to make sure that it's if I do the BRRRR, it's a better number and bigger margins than I would have done if it was my strategy the whole time. If I was going to pick a market at a distance, more important than all of the metrics people talk about is, do you know somebody in the market that you trust? You trust so much you think they're going to come to your funeral, and they're somehow tied to the real estate industry, realtor, contractor, investor. That's how I would do that. Stephan Dave, how many mods does Dion need? All of the mods. All of them. Craw, howdy. Aloha. First time, long time. Could you go over how you do your expenses, bank accounts, and could I email you for your spreadsheet? Thank you for all you do. Best way to get my spreadsheet, Craw, is I made a free course on the binder strategy. So this is my way that I get my tenants to ask me to raise the rent. It's one of the easiest things that has made it easier to reach financial freedom in real estate. So if you go to DionTalk.com, maybe Wealth Building Journey or somebody like Devin and Dave can put a link in the chat for me while I'm here. But at the binder, it's DionTalk.com/binder. In the binder course, which you don't have to take, but that's where the information is. My spreadsheet on how I track all my income and expenses for my real estate portfolio is in there. And my seller financing offer letter that I'm submitting with my offers is in there. You can get them for free. So while I go over my bank accounts, we can make investing in real estate as simple or as complex as we want to. And I have to change the numbers because I was used to saying 16, but now it's 18 rental units. This is what my stuff looks like now. My entire business. Long list of reasons for no LLC. One checking account. I had two for a while because I had too much money to be FDIC insured, but I bought a place. Don't need the second one now. So one checking account, one saving account, one credit card that I use for cash back and pay off every day. Never carried a balance from one day to the next. Get the Apple Card now. You get the titanium. It's very easy to apply for. Gives you 1 to 3% back on everything. Tells you right there every day. It shows you your update on what you're getting back, and you can pay it off from Apple Cash. My one Excel spreadsheet with a tab for income and a tab for expenses that me and my CPA put together, and then I put all the information in there, send it to them. They do the taxes. I don't have to worry about it. And that's it. Like, if you really wanted to get technical and say, how do you run your business? My entire business fits in this book. Every property gets 10 pages. Each of those 10 pages says the leases, the mortgages, the insurance, pictures of the property, current leases, tenants, dates for renewals, and I could flip through each page and go through it. Some people have a vision board. I have a vision book, but it's not necessary. I just do that as there's a lot of 10 pages there, motivation to add properties when I was growing my portfolio. The spreadsheet is really all I need. And I have, like I said, one checking account, one saving account. If they know your local laws, most areas require that you keep deposits in a separate interest-bearing account because that's actually the tenant's money, what you're holding onto it, and you have to give them their interest. But know your local laws. I've seen that. I've seen all the way to where people have an LLC for every property, and then they chain the LLCs, series the LLCs, so they try to have more anonymity and all of these things, and no thanks. As simple or as complex as we want to make it. Gosh, no. But next time I'm up in Tacoma, I may have to try to reach out to meet for coffee or lunch. We do. We get together here. The Tacoma Phi gets together once a month. And if you're in the area, me and Josh from REI Stoners actually did connect that way, went to lunch. And then he acquired, got a job up here, moved to Washington, worked here for a while. And they have acquired their first duplex. And they've got some videos on their YouTube channel, REI Stoners, on their rehab that they're doing now. Probably more on Instagram, just something I'm not on too much. JMC, howdy. How do you manage traveling a few months outside of the US with properties and not be afraid of outcomes like something major happening? Major things happen all the time. I don't need to go to my properties. Sarcastic answer out of the way. Now I'll give you the real answer. If you invest at a distance, I would recommend having a property manager. I think Millennial Mike is doing it absolutely right. He self-manages his local rental property management for the ones at a distance. The inverse way of the math of time for this is I built this portfolio while I'm here locally. So all of the systems are in place. I have several now handymen with different skill sets. I use the Thumbtack app to find contractors, get quotes, read reviews. I use Hemlane now to list my property, so it puts it out on 30 platforms. Hemlane has a 3-tier system, and this is why I'm comfortable traveling. Also, I'm a Hemlane affiliate, so if you want to use Hemlane on your portfolio, use the code Dion Talk to get 20% off your first year. The reason and I have Dana on here every now and then, their CEO, to talk about different things in real estate, because they have a ton of information, right? They have over 21,000 rentals on their platform, 3,000 owners, so a lot of data to go through. But it's a 3-tiered system. So I use the cheapest one right now because I'm here. So I can list my properties, I can collect rents, I can send messages to my handyman. If you step up to the 2nd tier, you can dispatch handyman through theirs, like an Angie's List kind of version of Hemlane's handyman. And then the 3rd tier, the highest, most expensive. And the cool thing is you can do this month to month. So if I had a month where all of a sudden I had a tenant leaving and I needed somebody to go and sign a lease with the new tenant, I would step up for the month to the highest tier for that unit. And then I would have them go and have a leasing sign there. Everything else is going to be handled by a contractor or handyman. I know other investors in the area, so build your network. I know I can absolutely any day call Millennial Mike and say, hey, I've got this problem going on. I'm in Thailand. I need you to go over there. I need you to go over there. So build your network of people that you can trust. But for most of us, that's going to be handymen and contractors. I use the Thumbtack app for most of that. Hire them for small jobs, see what their interaction is with tenants, find out what their specialties are. I've got a handyman who's primarily a plumber. I've got a handyman who will do flooring, but not carpet. And he has an electrician sub. I've got a handyman that, you kind of know what they can do. Understand that they're probably not going to work on a very strict timeline. If they had a good scheduling ability, they probably have a regular job. But a lot of handymen are doing that because they want to have control of their schedule. So it's not going to be on a really tight schedule. So that's how I handle being able to travel. I built the systems and processes. Now I could literally move away. I would still self-manage these properties. If I started investing in Gary, Indiana, since I didn't build the systems in place there and I don't know enough people, I would have a property manager. So ultimately, if you wanted to travel and not have to deal with any of that, you could hire a property manager. I don't recommend it while you're investing with mortgages, because while a property has a mortgage, generally your property manager is going to make more on your rentals than you do. If you have paid off properties, that's not the case, but they're still making a lot of money. That could be yours. Andy, Dion, since you told me not to tell on my listing that I'd be living in the house, an ADU basement with its own stuff, can I get the Dion Talk version of how to bring that up during the home tour? You're sharing their unit, and you say, and as the owner, I actually stay in the other unit. Just reference that it's the other unit. It's the same thing when I have a duplex, or I was at the fourplex, and I would say, I'm in that unit over there. Then you clearly have the conversation of how you like to be communicated with. I think I've seen my tenants at distant properties more than I've seen the ones at the properties that I've house hacked with. I've been duplex, fourplex, now duplex again, right? So of all the properties, I've only house hacked 3. But I say, primarily for communication, I prefer text. Text is the best way to get a hold of me. So if you were in the course video this last weekend and I shared my phone number, make sure you text, right? That's the way I'll respond. I hardly ever answer an actual phone call. I can take a phone call if there's 3 words that we use, and I'm going to go over those 3 words. Either 3 words you educate your tenants on. This is when a call is justified. Anytime you feel like a conversation is going to be important and could be referenced in court in the future, I shift from texting to emails. Most areas will allow texting and emails in court, but not all allow texting. Almost all allow email to be admitted into court. So that's how I want to communicate. I don't want a knock on my door. I don't want to go knock on their door. It's communicate these ways, whether it's the tenant next door or the tenant at a distance. And then if you were going to have a conversation and these 3 words are going to be used at any point in the conversation, it's okay to call me. And I should probably be your second call. If we're going to have a conversation where you're going to call me as the tenant and you're going to use the words fire, flood, or blood, that's okay to call me. Again, it might be after the 911 call, but that's the only time you should call me. Everything else should be texted or emailed because I won't answer my phone. That's how I bring that up. And I just talk about it like it's normal. To and fro global, howdy. Oscar, howdy. Andy, following up on my first question, I Googled the LLC phone number. That's the same provided by the tenant. Phone is not connected. LLC was formed last year, apparently. I would ask for alternate way of verifying the company's real. That's what I would be doing. Millennial Mike, howdy. CEO of Couch Moving. We went shopping the other day. I think I want to say it's like my second time in a store in a decade. Take out Lowe's and Home Depot, they don't count. But we went couch shopping for Mike's Airbnb. He's trying Airbnb on his other side of his unit, and we will be updating people with how that goes. And then Million took back a message to make me lose sleep and wonder forever and ever what was said. Is anyone else investing in Houston, Texas? Hopefully somebody here is, but if you're looking at any market, someone is investing everywhere successfully, somebody. And somebody's losing all their stuff. Is that Sensor 20? Howdy. I have a unique question for you, Dion. A rental property presently receives postal mails for many past tenants, like too many different names, and over 60 to 70% of the mails are not meant for that present tenant. They don't complain, but I understand it's a little overwhelming. Is there a way I can clean this up? Like some setup with post office? There absolutely is. You can write no longer lives at this address and put it back in the mailbox. That sometimes we'll have them record it. You can take it in and say these people no longer live at the address. And then I don't know that you can do a change of address form because you don't know the new address, but you could let the postal service know that they don't live there. So I've done that in several places. A couple things you want to set up like that: get mail redirected back. Set up a landlord policy with utilities in case tenants move out. Oliver, do you have in your lease agreement change out air filters every 30 days? If so, do you ever check and verify your tenants? No, I don't have that in the leases. I only have 2 places with HVACs. First few years, I used to go in once a year, put in an air filter, give them 3 other air filters for the quarters. But every time I went back to change the air filters, I would see that it was the same one from a year ago. Handymen will change them if they're doing something. Have a conversation with tenants that they should change the filters. Has never been a problem. Manuel, howdy, sold my 4-3 with a theater pool home sitting on 1.75 acres to downsize. I'm closing on September 13th on a duplex for my first house hack. $1,800 rental and mortgage is $3,243. Wish me luck. So $1,800 rental, meaning both sides would probably rent for 18. So you'd be bringing in, math is terrible because I went to school in America. They don't teach us anything. That's 3,600, and you're 3,243. That's for probably your principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. So I'd look at how much you put down. Is that rent the current rent, or what the rent's going to be based on area average rents? Like, there's a few other things there, but congratulations on getting a duplex. Getting rental income on your tax returns is one of the first steps that really matters, because now in 2 years, your debt to income ratio is really not going to matter to lenders as much, because they're going to consider rental income on whatever property you're buying as a part of your debt to income ratio. On vodka fourplex, it barely pulls it off. What's it? It's cash flowing 3,500 a month now. One property. It's like owning real estate doesn't suck. It's so weird. Make sure I'm not missing any one. There we go. Okay, so now we are. Rob, howdy. I don't think Mike's been shot at this week, although it's only Tuesday. Part of your motivation to retire was the fact that you were beating Matt to it. That could be a part of it. There you go. Never blindly trust a random guy on YouTube. Jaspreet Singh. Yes, Jaspreet Singh from Minority Mindset is definitely somebody you should be following. Awesome content. I miss his older content. He used to go and do like 4-hour long videos where he'd walk around the streets of whatever big city and just ask people random financial questions. And the amazing stupidity that exists on this planet, it was so good. Daniel, howdy. Have you used any creative financing that the other two amigos used? No. 90% current loan to value, 3-2-1 buy down, etc. I have only done conventional loans on my 2 deals, but with current rates, my cash on cash is almost break even. So all of my loans have been conventional, all the deals from the MLS. There are times I have made some offers on the 50-40-10 strategy where the interest rate on the 40 was good enough to give me a blended rate that made it a good deal. Other things made the deal fall apart. I haven't done seller financing. I haven't done subject to. I haven't done, what's the other one? Subject to seller financing, loan assumption. I think it's, if you're cash on card, cash is not good with current interest rates and current prices. Make sure you're tracking area average rents right, watch days on market, and make lower offers than what people have them listed at the numbers that actually make sense. But I've always bought down the rate. And I think in the current market, some of the sellers are buying down the rate. So the buy downs, yes, I've done that on every property. If you're going to keep a property for a short period of time, 2 years, 4 years, you might want to do the math. How much does it cost to buy down the rate? And how much does that save you every month? There's actually a math equation that can tell you if you should or not. My goal with all of my rental properties is that they actually perform better than all of my marriages. Right? My goal is actually until death do us part. So I buy down the rate. And then in 2020, when rates dropped down to 3, I refinanced. So even though I bought down the rates to 6 when I got them, I bought them down to 3 when I refinanced in 2020, like half my portfolio, because half my portfolio I acquired after 2020. If during 2020 counts, because that's included. Leave it to the comments below. I would lose my voice if I did like him. What's his end of his videos for Jaspreet? Keep hustling. I would lose my voice. Where's the alien? It's very sad. The alien vodka is still empty. The skull vodka is still empty. This movie thing is stupid. Andrew, howdy. Would someone, not Dion, explain to me what a super chat is and how I can support his channel? I will explain it for someone else. In the chat, there's a little button next to it where you can click and it looks like a dollar sign. Sometimes in a live like this, there's some nights where I only have like an hour I can talk. Tonight I'm trying to talk as long as the questions last, right? But there's some nights where I'm going to the Tacoma FI meetup or something where I've got to get out of here. But you want your question answered tonight, you can do a super chat. It jumps you to the front of the line, makes it a bigger chat, changes the color for me so I can see it. The money that you put, the dollar, the whatever, part of that goes to YouTube, right? They take whatever it is, like 25 to 45%, whatever their fee is for that. So they take some of it. But it tells them somebody likes the content, so they push it out to a larger, newer audience to see if anybody else might like this. So that's how it supports the channel. It's not so much that the money coming in, because YouTube, even with the super chats, makes somewhere around $500 a month, I think is what I'm making. I wonder if I can just show you guys. Let me know if you actually want me to show you what YouTube's paying. I'll pull up the thing and show you what they pay. Where the money comes from YouTube, if you get into this, if you ever grow a channel, is your affiliate links. When I have, like, you can click on the Audible book to see one rental at a time, or you can click on the locks that I use in my rentals. What it does is Amazon gets a 24-hour cookie set on your computer, where for 24 hours, anything else you buy on that platform doesn't cost you anymore. But the link that brought you there gets a little bit of that. So that tends to make more than YouTube does. So I appreciate the super chats because it helps grow the channel. It helps get the information to more people. And that's what they are. Dividend Dave, I found my attorney on the back of a napkin. I went through 2 divorces. Both of my exes had attorneys. This is where the kids were involved. I kept custody of the kids, kept the houses, because I represented myself. I actually know how anybody can keep custody of their kids, guy or girl, doesn't matter the gender. And I want to make a YouTube channel about that because I want to share that. I just don't think anybody would care. Angel R. In my house hack, I'm unsure whether to upgrade to LED lights, granite, etc., or leave it as is until renting. Worried I might be over improving and tenants won't appreciate it. What's your advice? So I put in LED lights. I put in these. These are from Lowe's. They're like $30. But the reason I put them in is partially because it's like an upgrade to the thing, right? It looks better, but it's a cool light. There's no heat and there's no bulb. It's a 30-year bulb, 30-year LED plate up there. So no tenant will ever be switching a light out, switching a bulb, and fall and get injured. I put motion sensor LED lights on the exterior that cost about $49, I think, for the better ones. I've got some two light ones that are only like $30. Same thing. It's brighter, no heat. There's no bulbs to change. The granite countertops I've never done. I've never updated granite countertops. Butcher block is good. Just regular laminate, whatever they are. You can put an epoxy on them. If you find somebody, Millennial Mike had one that did it for a good price. But I don't think you'll ever get the return on granite because the treatment that it needs and how hard it is to maintain and how easy it is for a tenant to mess it up. And it doesn't increase your rent. The things I'm doing, I don't replace the round lights with the thing on the bottom that everybody has a creative name for. But because they're better or whatever, I replace them because there's no bulb and there's no heat. And those are the reasons why. Aesthetically, I think they look better, more updated. There's little $7 ones that you can get. I put them in restrooms and pantries. It's just a $7 one. And all of these have settings, 7 settings. You can literally go daylight to warmer temp, colors, looks like a blue light kind of thing. More options, not to increase the rent, to increase the safety of the unit. But not the countertops. You're not going to get the rental return on that. Dividend Dave, nice dad joke incoming. Andrew, there's a little box with another reminder in it next page. Explain that. Thank you. It's awesome where you can be a member of the channel. Is that what he was talking about when he was describing doing property analysis with students? Yes, Andrew. So twice a month, usually on a Saturday, at like 2 or 4 in the afternoon, depends. For the last 10 weeks, I was the teaching assistant in the BiggerPockets Real Estate Rookie Boot Camp. So that was at 2 o'clock every Saturday. So I was doing it usually at 3 or 4, where we look at deals together. And it's a Zoom call. Everybody gets on the Zoom with me that's a member. You can watch it on YouTube if you're super shy, but it'd be cool if you get into Zoom. We talk real estate, but we literally pull up the listings from my agent. We go through and I talk, this is why I like it. This is what I would look. This is the order of, stream of consciousness, how I would look at this deal. Then we look at other deals. We've looked at Dave's, we've looked at lumberjack landlords, we've looked at some of Frank's deals, and I think Cody, you had some in there too, and we just talk through them. It goes on for about an hour. Those members only lives are available on YouTube for members. If they can't make it there, they're still there to watch. Again, super boring because we're just talking real estate and looking at deals. So if it's the information you're looking for, it's exciting. But if you're on YouTube to entertain yourself for 10 minutes or 2 hours, however long the live stream is going to last, no, it would kill my channel if we did that here. So that's what the members thing is for. All-nighter, last question. I'm a little confused about the 2 levels of YouTube. There's no difference. Go for the cheaper one. If it's that, there's options to do a more expensive one. I put different ones in there so people can choose how much they want to support, but there's really no difference. There is a version of it where I think some creators are going like, okay, here's a members section where it's like $1,000. So then that tier is probably the one that's going to get like the free merch and the free private lessons, free one-on-ones and all. I don't do that. I just have the 2 lessons, 2 levels, and it's everybody can join the members. Sorry if it was a little confusing. I think it had to have a 2. There could have been more, but I stopped at 2. Interesting thought, Dion. Could you ask both Dana and Beth to show up on a live? Beth, I'm pretty sure she would. I haven't had Dana on a live yet. I'll check. I don't know her level of comfort, right? She does videos because I think I've said this in videos before. I have a traumatic brain injury from Desert Storm and my memory's not great, right? So I have reminders on my phone and Post-its and a little thing here. It says, it's Tuesday, you're doing your live stream. So if my brain shuts off and I look up and I go, oh, that's what I'm doing. Look at the chat. I know where I'm at, right? So when I do my other videos that are outside of my live streams, I can edit. And so sometimes during an interview, there's things, yeah, maybe not want to say that on YouTube. I can edit there. I don't. So I always check, like Beth has asked, hey, can I come into your live? She comes, she shares great information. I will ask Dana. I think we're making videos in like a week or 2. But it would be great to have them together. That would be cool. Both with a ton of information. All-nighter hire regarding LLCs, private versus statutory. All subject over to which sovereign power of the United States extend, corp or other statutory entities are objects of taxation and regulation, but those over which it does not extend are exempt from taxation and exempt from regulation. This proposition may almost be pronounced as self-evident. The sovereignty of the state extends to everything that exists in its authority, its permissions. McCullough versus Maryland. That hurt my brain. And then I lost it. And I see we have a super chat here from Andrew. Howdy, Andrew, for the super chat. Thank you. Thank you for explaining that. And thank you for everything. As always, I was a BP rookie office hours junkie. Viva Latino. Thank you. Those office hours are awesome in BiggerPockets. I hope they're helpful. The way it works, and I have to think of how to share this because there's an NDA you can't share. They have very proprietary on their information. They have it's a 10-week program. This is stuff they put out on their website. So it's a 10-week program. Each week covers a subject. Ashley Kerr and the other host every week do a video that you're in. And then later in the week, I do an office hours, which is an hour long, kind of like this, but it's all on Zoom. And we literally talk. First portion is, hey, what did we cover this week? And then we kind of wrap up with open format like this. So, but it's in Zoom. So it's a little more, not quite one-on-one, but a little easier to get your questions answered that way. Wealth building journey. Now it's up to 45% for the ad sharing program. They do get their money. Keep hustling. Trustpreet Singh. Thank you. REI Stoners. This moving thing sucks, but hey, I'm never renting again. Awesome. Yes, it does. And congratulations. Let me see where I was in my chat. All night I had to broke my brain. There we go. Okay. Rich Hilarious. Howdy. I house hack 3 houses at the moment, and I'm also arbitraging salon suites with my partner. That's awesome. Salon suites are the commercial house hack. It's a way we are scaling our income, and we plan on flipping these salon suites for a juicy profit down the road and converting to rentals. Sounds like a solid plan. I have several friends who are in cosmetology. I was actually friends with the owners of several different cosmetology schools. I was the president of the Northwest Career Colleges Federation, so 112 vocational schools. A lot of them were cosmetology. So I got to know a lot of people that are in that business and how entrepreneurial it is to do the salon thing when they get out. One of the reasons why I don't do multipliers of the rent for income verification is because you eliminate cosmetologists, because they get a lot of their money from tips. Andrew, thanks all nighter. It was a little bit of a head scratcher, but obviously to get a ton out of this, so I'm happy to do the $5. Thank you. Awesome. Thank you very much. It's appreciated. REI Stoner, sorry I'm late. Been talking to my brother for the last hour about the way contractors think and how I should present myself to receive bids. Found I was making some mistakes. Nice. Hopefully, Josh, you watched recently. I did why we always get 3 bids, because it's not what you think. Glad my family has been in construction for the last 40 years and my brother bids jobs for a living. That's exactly why I did the video, because that's what I did for the tree service before I joined the Marines. Are you still sending Matt the Pink Panther meme every day? Not every day, but occasionally. Yes, the Pink Panther meme does get sent out to Matt. I think for a while, I was doing this. I can remember, I don't even remember how I do it, but I used to have it when I did Matt. No, I used to put the Pink Panther as a background during these live streams. Alantino, howdy, good to see you again. And I have been binging your videos and came across how to apply for jobs. I passed that bit along to my veteran buddies. Awesome. Thank you for your service. Thank you. Thank you. It doesn't get very many views because it's on a real estate channel, right? But I have 3 videos that are really important to me. One is why your resume is not working. The other is the hidden job market. And the third is how to interviewing mistakes. Something I learned from a decade of running a nonprofit that did job placement assistance. Dividend Dave, can you explain rate buy down? So when you get a mortgage, the lender will, hopefully they quote you a rate. Let's say they say 8%. Sometimes they're going to say 6%, and they're giving you the rate that's already been bought down, just assuming you're going to do it. So if they tell you your interest rate is going to be 7 or 8%, you can ask, how much does it cost to buy it down? And they'll usually have a system of how far you can buy it down. If the seller buys it down or does concessions, there's some weird law or rule or regulation where they can only do 6% of the value of the sale in that transaction. But you can buy it down as much as the lender will allow. The lenders can't go all the way, but the lenders will let you buy down the rate. And they usually charge you 0.5 point or a point. So when we're comparing lenders, the order of operations that I've done for lending, it's not just how to do the lending, how to qualify, how to get the best rates. But when you're shopping lenders, we're comparing the rate and the fees for buying the rate down, the fees for closing costs, any of the other things that we can compare lenders with. And the cost to buy it down is not uniform. It can be different with the same lender 1 month to the next. But that's what you're doing. You're paying a lump sum now to buy down the interest rate. So if it costs you $5,000 to bring it down, if you're going to keep the property forever, I would do it. If you're going to keep the property for a short period of time, how much will it lower your payment every month? And let's say it lowers it $200 a month. Well, how many months does it take $200 to equal the $5,000 that you paid to buy it down? If you're planning on flipping, selling, or refinancing within that time, it doesn't make sense to buy it down. If you're going to have it for longer than that without refinancing or not planning on refinancing, then it makes sense to buy it down. Thank you, Dividend Dave. BuzzTune, when you talk about the first 5 years sucking, could you break that down for us? Money flow per property rented, savings rate, trying to understand how to calculate if I can possibly have less years of suck. Okay, Cliff Notes version, top of mind awareness from a person with memory issues. Don't sue me, bro. I was starting from a position where I was only making $17 an hour. I had $89,000 in bad debt, and I was a single parent with 3 kids. From that position, it took 8 years for financial independence, retired at 12 years with financial freedom. Is your position that bad? Are you only making $17 an hour? Is there only one income in your household? Do you have 3 people depending on you? Do you have a bunch of bad debt? Always makes me need water when I talk about the $89,000 in bad debt I didn't know about until the divorce. times. Fun note, it was actually $313,000 in bad debt. But here's the nugget you could take away from this. One of the lenders, when I was calling to find out who I owed money to, apparently, that I didn't know, my ex was filing bankruptcy, which was one of the things that made our debt my debt, even though we're in a state where it's my debt anyway. The debtor asked me if it was my intent to file bankruptcy like she did, because, and when I said she did, some of you just wondered, wait, Dion straight? They said, because if you plan on filing bankruptcy, we'll take 20% of what you owe us. And I was like, wait a minute, is that a thing? So I called all of the debtors, because I didn't plan on filing bankruptcy. I was in law enforcement. And at that time, a bankruptcy is a career killer because you're more likely to take a bribe, right? But I considered it. I considered bankruptcy and I rejected it because it would kill my career. So I called all of those people that I magically owed money to. And I said, I'm considering bankruptcy. Would you take a smaller amount? And almost all of them, the Discover card, a dentist, and an apartment I didn't know we were renting for fun, wouldn't take less than what we owed them. Those three were locked in, but everything else, almost everybody took 20 to 30% of whatever was owed. So that 313 dropped down to 89. That's what I ended up taking care of. Way too much of an overshare. I'll blame the water. That was my starting position. So I think if your position's better than that, you can probably go sooner. Here's why the first 5 years sucked. I only made $17 an hour and I had a bad debt to income ratio, so I couldn't really buy a place. I moved from my house into an apartment and rented the house out for 2 years. I actually lived in two different apartments because the first one raised the rent. And I was like, nope, screw you. I'm out of here. Move to the next one. Rented the house out. That got rental income on my tax returns for those 2 years. Let me work at the truck driving school as an instructor for 2 years to have the consistent income in the same type of job, because I had gone from law enforcement, which is a shift, so lenders wouldn't even look at me then. So that solved a couple of problems. So for 2 years, what did I do? Worked a bunch of overtime, worked my way up in the company, worked my side hustle playing World of Warcraft and selling things online to save money. Saved about 28 grand in 2 years while paying off. So half my savings went to saving for those 2 years, half my disposable income, and half of my disposable income went to, we have good debt, bad debt, and worse debt. My half went towards saving for my first house hack. Half of my disposable income went towards my worst debt. So good debt is debt that makes you more than it costs and somebody pays off the principal. Bad debt is money that costs you money every month. And it's not for an asset that's going to produce money. So credit card debt, a depreciating car loan, personal line of credit, those kind of things. And worst debt, for me, identifying this was interest rate above 6% or an adjustable rate. If it had an adjustable rate or a rate above 6%, that was worst debt. So half went to tackle that. Half went to saving. I got to $28,000. So I saved in 2 years. Let me tell you, a lot of overtime, a lot of World of Warcraft, a lot of not spending money. Bought the first duplex. So in 2 years, what I do, one transaction. Continued for 2 years, tackling worst debt, saving for first duplex in 2 years. So now we're 4 years in. The house didn't cash flow the first year. Tax-wise, it didn't cash flow the second year, but it actually had some profit and contributed to me being able to save the money. I'm house hacking, which reduced my cost of living from $1,500 a month to $300 a month. So I was adding $1,200 a month to my savings rate for the next 2 years, and working overtime, working more in the company, working my way up. Still playing World of Warcraft, selling things online because people will buy anything. Bought a duplex. So we're 4 years in now, and I have a house that's cash flowing. I've learned the binder strategy. It's cash flowing more. I'm still house hacking the duplex and reducing my expenses. And I have a duplex that is cash flowing. So now I have 1, 2, 3, 4 rentals, and I'm house hacking. A year and a half later, so now we're 5.5 years in, I bought the next duplex. At that point, I had enough cash flow. I had 4 mortgages in my name, right? 3 duplexes and the house. And lenders were only letting you have 4 mortgages in your name. They wouldn't let you have more than that because they all got kicked in the teeth with the 2008 housing crash. So instead of adding more mortgages or educating myself on DSCR lending, asset-based, seller financing, all the stuff I've learned since then, I focused all of my extra cash flow on the bad debt and because the worst debt was gone, the bad debt, and paying off and I tackled the income snowball and the income avalanche. Worst interest rate was my single family house. Lowest mortgage was my single family house, and I paid that off. So at about 6.5 years, that's what it took to focus and pay that off. Maybe 7 years, right around there, right around 7 years, so another year and a half. Right about then is when the cash flow was greater. It was $2,700 a month. So that's not life altering, financial freedom. You can't quit your job. I could quit my job then. But $2,700 a month in money coming in that I didn't have to work for. That was more than what I was making when I was a police officer. When I was a police officer, my paycheck every 2 weeks was $1,300. So $2,600 a month that I worked for, and I had a mortgage. Now I'm house hacking, so no mortgage, and I had $2,700 a month coming in. Financial independence. That's about when that happened, 7 to 8 years, right in there. And then 2 years later, bought the duplex. Same year, bought the triplex. Next year, bought a duplex. Then nothing for a year. So that's kind of what the chronological timeline of cash flow looked like and why the first 5 years sucked. 4 years, 2 things. While working a ton of overtime, working a side hustle, minimizing expenses. While they suck, the next 5 years are amazing. When the cash flow started to be more than when I was a cop, it was more than it took me to live on, and I was house hacking now, I could save 100% of my income from my job. Job was almost irrelevant. So I could take risks at work to try to grow. And if I lost the job, it wouldn't matter. So I could take bigger risks. And then the income snowball kicks in those next 5 years. And you start to think, what do I do with all this money? One of the reasons why I wanted to buy this house is, let me tell you about first world problems here. There was $500,000 in my account. And I was afraid of banks collapsing, to where I went and I took half the money out of Bank of America, put it in Wells Fargo to be FDIC insured in 2 different financial institutions. Those are some real problems to have right there. And then I was like, I want to put this money to work, self-fund a house hack burr duplex. Wealth building journey. You'd be surprised how many divorced dads would instantly subscribe to a channel with content about custody asset breakdown. Maybe. RAI Stoners, we are going to do an epoxy project on our bathroom countertop. Looks fun. Let me know how it goes. And maybe I'll come over and check it out. I'm half right, Ryan. I bought some of the rate down as well as the seller. Awesome. Dividend Dave, for the non-sarcastic answer. You pay a percentage of the purchase price in addition to the closing fees to lower the interest rate, basically prepaid points. There we go. Let's see if there's any questions coming up. Make sure I'm not missing any of them. We might be wrapping up here in a little bit. Definitely make a video, Ryan. Awesome. All-nighter hider. Actually, Josh, the super rich tend to rent their home because it often makes more financial sense than buying in that area. This is true. And it's easier to call somebody to fix things than to do it yourself. Million, what do you think about studying a new market to house hack? Are you going to be moving there? If you're studying it, I would probably, me personally, because I was a police officer for a while, I would find an officer in that town and just say, hey, I have a couple of quick questions. If you approach an officer, make sure your hands are out of your pockets and you are making eye contact as you come up, and just say, I'm thinking about moving to this area. Where's the worst parts of town? Because the officers have to know street by street, because you don't get to Google really quick when you hear somebody calling shots fired, officer down in your town. You have to know the route to get there. So they literally know the layout of the town. And you could say, where do you guys spend most of your time? Because that's not where you want to be. If you're in or around Tacoma, it's the area surrounding McKinley or Pacific Avenue. If you're in Tumwater, it's 301 T Street, that entire, I don't know, dark portion of the universe right there. You need to know the area that you want to avoid. That's the most important thing when you're looking at that market. Then if you're considering the house hack and you're considering investing there, you're the boots on the ground, right? So you've got that covered. Then it is, are there enough economic drivers to provide sources of tenants if something goes away? Like if you move to a town like Port Angeles and the mill closes down, or you live in Brady, Washington, and the Brady mill closes down for 2 years to do a revamp. That wasn't a good time to be owning properties there. But if there's several economic drivers like the base, the port, the college, all of the different things, and one or two of them go away, there's enough other things to provide tenants for. So areas to avoid, are there enough economic drivers? I prefer Class C neighborhoods or areas. I don't want Class A, Class B, super high end. You might get bigger margins when things are going great, but things go bad faster. And then it's a bigger mortgage for you to handle. And if somebody gets laid off, I've had several tenants lose their jobs in the last 10 years and never miss a rent payment or even be late because unemployment's enough to cover a $1,500 a month mortgage or rent payment. But if somebody's making $150,000 in tech and they get laid off and their rent with you is $4,000, it's a little harder to go out and just find a job that pays enough to do that. So have a market that you prefer as far as class of properties go. If you're looking to move into a market and you're going to house hack, a lot of investors make the mistake of saying, I want to buy a duplex. Well, triplex and fourplex can sometimes make more sense. And yeah, the down payment can be larger unless you go with FHA, then it stays 3.5% for all. But you have single family house hacks also. Maybe it has an ADU, or maybe it's a split level that can be divided into two places, or it has a built-out basement. Right? So you want to look at all 4 units or less, unless you're a veteran, then it's 5 units or less for VA loans. But you want 4 units or less for 30-year fixed rate debt. That's the beauty of real estate, residential real estate. House with ADU, duplex, triplex, fourplex, and then you want to look for all of the possible iterations of ADU. Because you don't know what the listing agent's going to call it. So all the colloquialisms, ADU, DADU, JADU, accessory dwelling unit, auxiliary dwelling unit, detached, granny flat, mother-in-law house, whatever they're going to call it, look for all of them. I prefer, if I buy a duplex, a triplex, or a fourplex, I own one duplex that's on a street of duplexes. It's in a contractor in 1992, purchased the whole street, built like 12 duplexes on that street. All of my other properties, it goes single family house, triplex, single family house. They're my small multifamily in a single family area. As long as it's zoned right and legally permitted, that's what I prefer. Comps in that area will go up with the single family value versus the duplexes in an area where the duplexes set the price for all the other ones. And single family houses appreciate faster than small multifamily in most markets, not in a market like we have right now where investors are as much competition as they are. Usually our biggest competition is home buyers, because home buyers buy based on payment. Investors buy based on profit. So home buyers can pay more. Not because they're stupid, but because they probably have the mistaken idea that this is the biggest asset that they're going to own, but it's not really an asset. It can turn into an asset, but it's usually purchased as a liability. But they'll pay more, which brings up the value of your property and increases the area average rents. I get almost exactly the same for my duplexes and my triplex, because it's not fair because it's a house and a duplex, as I do for my single family houses. Not much different. So that's how I would look at studying a new market to house hack. Cool. Stephan and Dave, how do we find the numbers of owners who have their properties put into LLCs? I would ask Cody from Cody and Christian Multifamily Strategy. He actually has a website. Stephan and Dave, I will find it out and send it to you. There's a website where you can look up the owners of LLCs. Some states it's a little different. They have better anonymity, but in most cases, you can just look it up on this website, because I've heard Cody talk about it on his channel several times. I'll find out for you. Open corporates provided LLC ownership info. Maybe that's it. Thank you all later. BuzzTune, thank you so much. Adds great clarity. Those years of sacrifice are completely worth it to reach the life on the other side. The last thing I'll wrap up with here, unless there's any questions that pop into the chat, the reason why those first 5 years suck, but they're worth it. The math of time, getting, 15 hours a day that belong to you instead of 6, like the average person, Instead of only getting the 19 years with your friends or family, you know, the 18 where your kids live with you or you live with your parents, and then the 1 year of aggregate time for the rest of your lives that you spend together, you might increase that. Most of these videos, one of the reasons why I have the maps is because I never know where I'm going to be, because I'm going to be wherever I feel like being. I just went and spent a week with the lumberjack landlord just to hang out, just to go see what it's like where he lived. Lobster rolls, pretty cool. Didn't know those were a thing. What else was back there? Just for the heck of it, went there. Got a cruise. I'm leaving on the 12th because it's like the 13th to the 24th. So I'm leaving the 12th back to 25th. I'm still going to try to do some live streams. I don't think that there's Wi-Fi on a boat, so I'm not sure how the Tuesday live streams are going to go, but I'll still be uploading videos. When I come back, I'm probably going to go to Thailand for somewhere between 3 to 5 months. Last year, before I retired, I took 2 months and went to Florida and just scuba dove until I got bored, which apparently is 2 months. That's how long it takes. I can't put it into words. If you're working a job right now and you're working towards financial freedom, and the purpose of this video was, man, if I love my job so much, why would I retire early? You have no idea, none, how much stress you're under. You won't until you retire. You can't possibly. It's not possible to know. But once you retire, you're going to be shocked at either how little or how much it was. It won't be what you were expecting. And I honestly don't think you know what you're going to retire to. One of the great things that I get from Joe Kuhn's channel is retire to something, not from something. Once you have the time freedom, there's probably maybe a couple of gamers here because you're watching a nerd make a YouTube video. And you think, if I had time freedom, I'd probably game. You game right now, some of us, as an escape. You get off work and you want to do something. You want to do something that's fun, so you're going to play a game. But you're physically exhausted, right? To the point where VR games are too much energy. So you find a 2D game like World of Warcraft, Destiny 2, Call of Duty, whatever it is, where you're holding a controller. You're physically not moving your body. You're sedentary because that's the level of energy your body has, even though your mind is still racing. That's why you're playing the game. Now imagine, take out the exhaustion from work and you think, what am I going to do today? I should play a game. Wait, I have an inflatable paddleboard and I haven't seen that island over there. And there goes 7 hours of your day. You had no idea that was going to happen today. You have no idea what you're going to do. That's one of the reasons why I think you should retire early. Thank you, Ninja Vanish. Much appreciated. Make sure I'm not missing a question here. Josh, Dave, Cody, and Christian have a video showing it. Yep. Andy, I will game for 6 months straight so that I get very tired of it and won't want to game in a while. So what I'm tending to do is Diablo 4 came out. There went 3 weeks. Baldur's Gate 3 just came out. I'm in the middle of my at least 3 weeks, although this one is a little more entertaining than Diablo was. If you're playing Baldur's Gate 3, find the barn, go in, no matter what noises you hear, and just interrupt what you hear. It's totally worth it. Don't have kids in the room when you do this, because you're going to see an ogre and I think an orc in an interesting situation. But enjoy. All Nighter Hider. Dion, speaking of gaming, Lane asked what race and class you are in. Wow, all of them. 16 max level characters, one of each class, one of each race. Mostly played Horde for a while. I had a lot of friends that were younger, so they played Alliance because in the dinosaur days of WoW, Paladins were only on Alliance and Shaman were only on Horde. So younger kids wanted to be the good guys and they played the Paladin. Now it's cross, doesn't matter. But my usually main was Druid because you can play all 4 specs, tank, healer, melee, or range DPS, and versatility. But played everything because I had no life and I was selling stuff in the game. On that note, thank you all for hanging out with me. It was kind of cool to see Joe Kuhn hanging out in the comments there at the beginning. That was pretty neat. Hopefully we can get together and make some videos because I love his content. You guys should check it out. He is primarily a stock investor who at 54 retired, has been retired for like 4 years now and puts out great content on like this video, why you should retire early. Until my next video, thanks for coming to my Dion Talk. Oh, the video lasted longer than my water.